It's interesting that what you're teaching people is to slow down and practice being curious in those uncomfortable moments. Like me slowing down and trying to be curious about my partner's experience that she's trying to share with me. That's like warrior work right there, because you're like in the fire, and the work is for you to actually stay in the fire and be a little bit uncomfortable and try to override your own desire to run, let's say, or avoid or change your partner's experience or their feelings, and to actually just understand them and realize that you're actually not going to die, and that this isn't threatening to your identity, that there's these illusions that we're operating under, right? And we buy those in those moments and we just take them and run with them. And so these formats that you're taking people through, even though it's a long drawn out, very simplified thing, you're creating a space for people to practice something that's really fucking hard, man. It is being curious about each other. I grew up in a house where I had to fight to be heard and fight to be seen. And my family wasn't very curious about each other. We were all doing that. We were all just fighting to be heard. And so I actually am not that great at being curious, and I have to practice that. I have to practice asking questions. And it's interesting because I'm a counselor, and so people have been like, "You're a shitty counselor." I've received that feedback from particularly romantic partners because I'm like not asking questions, not being curious, because it's not my default. And so here's this format that's saying, hey, this is the missing ingredient in your relationship. It's being curious and learning to empathize and mirror and validate your partner. It's huge.
Isn't it interesting that you are a successful coach, successful counselor, and you are curious about people and you do ask questions and you've invested yourself, you've dedicated your life to teaching and supporting others and helping men with their personal challenges, addictions, other issues they've got going on in their life. This is what you do. It's an interesting thing. It's like, how could we have the successful, effective, intelligent coach who shows up in his relationship sometimes as lacking curiosity? And the answer is really that it's actually when you get stressed, when you get triggered in that intimacy and that connection with your partner, when you're in the pain of that, the stress of that, just like me and just like everybody else, we're going to adapt, we're going to respond to the scenario. For me, curiosity is one of my growth opportunities with my partner as well. And the thing that she wants the most from me in many moments is the hardest thing for me to give her because it's connected to my growth. It's connected to my evolution. Many of us get into relationships wanting sex, wanting adventure, wanting a spiritual practice, wanting a travel buddy, wanting a companion. Or maybe we just want a partner to avoid being alone. There's all kinds of motivations people got to be together.
Yeah.
And we're sold on this honeymoon idea. We're sold on the fact that everything's going to work. And what we encounter and what I hope that people get is that you really need to play the long game because none of this is ever going to be over until it's over, which is you're out of relationship or you're dead. And as long as you're in relationship with another person, you're going to be met with nasty parts about yourself. You're going to get triggered. You're going to get upset. It's going to require work. You're going to have a conversation. There's going to be growth. And if you don't grow, and if you're not in a relationship for development, in some way, nature is going to be very unkind to you. And I think that's just true whether you're in a relationship or not. That if you're not willing to take accountability, if you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to be open-minded, to acknowledge that you're not perfect, that some way life is going to mash up against you.
Yeah.
And we see this in the way that disease manifests in the body. People self-sabotage or they create problems for themselves in their lives when they're not willing to take responsibility for their words, for their behaviors, for the way they've shown up. And
Yeah, I think what you just illuminated was this one of the main principles of conscious relationship, which is that your relationship is a crucible for your personal evolution. It is your opportunity. Like if you want to go to a personal growth workshop, you want to go to Landmark or Choices or any other thing that's supposed to level you up, your most intimate relationships, your relationship with your family and your relationship with your lover are going to be the largest opportunities you have in your lifetime to work through your shit, because your shit is going to come up big time with those people. And so seeing it not as, when we're younger, I think we see romantic relationship as like the other person has something to give me that I don't have, and I want to get that thing. And I'm like, give me the thing that I want. And we objectify each other a little bit. I want the good sex. I want the laughs. I want the fun. And we want that honeymoon phase. And then as we age, we start to realize that it's not even about give and take, but hopefully we realize that actually the things that come up with this person are my deepest things that I have to work on. And I can blame them for bringing those things up, or I can take them as an opportunity. And so embracing all of the struggles as some kind of cosmic lesson that's being given to you is one of the ways that you can stay in the game, because it's very easy to convince yourself to leave. It's also easy to convince yourself to stay in a relationship that perhaps is toxic or does need to end under the guise of personal growth. I know many people who do that as well. So there's no easy answer in terms of like when to end a relationship or not. You really have to feel into that for yourself and seek counsel in people who really know you and who really understand relationship. But this underlying principle of relationship being a crucible for your personal growth is really important. I think before we get to the Q&A, because Q&A is going to be really fun, I just want to touch on repair. And if there's anything else you want to touch on before we get there, I want to do that too. Repair, I don't know if repair is the origin of repair is from attachment science, or if it goes further back than that, or if there's anything in Imago around repair or the Gottman's work. But it comes up a lot in my study of relationships, in that the ability to repair from a conflict or from a hurt feeling or from something that's gone wrong in relationship is crucial to really paving that pathway to true partnership. You can't get to true partnership without being able to repair when things go wrong. Inevitably, in every relationship, you're going to hurt someone's feelings. You're going to get your feelings hurt. You're going to do things that violate the other person's principles, not knowing it. You may have a moment where you are off your rocker and you hurt the person intentionally because you're lashing out at them. We all have these unsavory sides to ourselves, and it's shadow work as a side subject. Very important to recognize that we all have that and acknowledge that you're not a pure soul in a way, and that like you have a dark side. We all have a dark side, and that comes out in relationship too. But having a process and an understanding and agreement in relationship that, hey, when things go awry, we have a duty to try to repair that with one another, to hear each other, to practice sharing what it is that didn't go well. And our goal is to repair and to reconnect when our feelings have been hurt or what have you. I'm seeing that in my family relationships right now. There's stuff coming up in my family, like with my parents, that's 10 years old. And I'm realizing that there's stuff that my family is holding that I did in my 20s that was never brought to me and was never repaired. And so it's still a thing. Right. And so I'm seeing like, oh, this is the product of not having an agreement around repair. And you can hold a resentment for decades if you don't understand the importance of this principle.